Welcome to NEDEX International. The Ukrainian army has destroyed a Russian Nebo-M radar system worth $100 million using ATACMS missiles. This radar had given Russian forces a significant advantage in airspace control. The attack strengthens Ukraine's cross-border operational capabilities, while severely weakening Russia's air defense. It's seen as a key step towards future missile strike successes. Let's move on to the details. The Ukrainian army has destroyed the equipment of the occupying forces worth $100 million in an attack it organized. The Nebo-M model radar system, which Russian forces have deployed to the borderline in order to prevent the Ukrainian army's counter-missile attacks, has become the target board of the US-produced ATACMS missiles. The developments in the recent period of the Russia-Ukraine war, which has been going on for more than 2 years, have proved many times that the Ukrainian army is extremely successful in defense, as well as strategic cross-border attacks. The Ukrainian army, which began to implement a much more offensive war strategy, with the appointment of Colonel General Oleksandr Syrsky as Chief of the General Staff in the first months of the year, has completely changed the roles in the war, especially with the step they took in the first week of August. This unexpected move of the Ukrainian army, which together with the ground operation they launched against the Kursk Oblast, moved the war inside Russian territory and obtained a critical trump card for possible peace negotiations in the process, showed the extent of Russia's border security gaps to the whole world. The Moscow administration, which has still not managed to stop the Ukrainian operation that has been going on for months, has tried to increase the pressure on Ukrainian regions such as Donetsk, Kharkiv, and Zaporizhia, and make them forget about the defeats they are facing, instead of increasing measures along the borderline. However, the step taken by the Ukrainian army in the first week of October clearly showed that Russia's audacious airstrikes and offensive attempts have no negative impact on Kiev's motivation to continue its self-defense struggle. Thursday, October 3rd, the officials of the General Staff of the Armed Forces of Ukraine, who made a critical announcement via the official Telegram account, said, "Missile units of the Armed Forces of Ukraine launched a successful attack on the Russian Nebo-M radar station with ATACMS ballistic missiles." The Nebo-M radar, which has always been a difficult target for the Ukrainian military due to its stealth characteristics, is famous for providing a critical advantage to Russian forces in the detection of foreign aerial objects. Only one unit of the Nebo-M model radar, which is one of the biggest obstacles to Ukraine's ability to effectively use the Storm Shadow model cruise missiles supplied from the UK and Scalp EG model missiles supplied from France, is worth $100 million. Claiming that Russia has only 10 operational Nebo-M radars in the current period, Ukrainian General Staff officials stated that for this reason, their recent attack with ATACMS model US ballistic missiles also provides a great advantage for the long-range attacks that Ukraine will organize in the future. Continuing with the statement, Ukrainian officials also touched upon the possible problems that this operation will create for Russia. The destruction of this radar system will seriously reduce the ability of the army of the Russian Federation to detect, track, and intercept aerodynamic and ballistic targets. The war work of our defense forces on the important targets of the enemy continues. There has been no official announcement yet about which region of the Russian radar system worth $100 million was destroyed. However, considering that the United States does not allow the use of ATACMS model ballistic missiles in cross-border operations, it can be predicted that Ukraine carried out this attack south of the active battlefield. Stating that thanks to the destruction of the Nebo-M radar, Storm Shadow model cruise missiles, and these missiles, have created a favorable air corridor for the effective use of Scalp model cruise missiles. A variant of the French production, the Ukrainian General Staff said that Ukrainian fighter pilots will also have the opportunity to get closer to the front line and make instant and effective interventions to enemy points on the line. In many of the Ukrainian army's operations on the active battlefield, the main targets have been air defense assets belonging to the occupying Russian forces. The Ukrainian army, which aims to make Russian forces the open target of airstrikes in order to be able to more effectively evaluate its military inventory. which it has modernized with the support provided by the Western Bloc countries led by the United States, similarly targeted the Nebo-U model Russian radar in April of this year. In a statement to the Kiev Independent on April 16th, the Ukrainian Security Service SBU stated that the radar in question was targeted in Bryansk, one of Russia's critical border regions. This radar system, which provides a great advantage for Moscow due to its ability to monitor Ukraine's airspace up to a depth of 700 kilometers, was used to detect weapons of the Ukrainian army and support attacks by Russian forces using fighter jets integrated with guided aerial bombs. However, the Ukrainian General Staff, which has deployed 7 kamikaze model unmanned aerial vehicles, stated that they have put an end to the activities of the mechanized Russian toy, which provides Moscow with a critical advantage, stating that the enemy's ability to detect air targets on the northern border of Ukraine was reduced as a result of this attack. Ukrainian officials said, "Russian radar blindness will help our soldiers to conduct reconnaissance, launch unmanned aerial vehicles, and use army aviation more effectively in this area." The Ukrainian Security Service SBU, which stated that they destroyed the same type of radar system in Belgorod during the operation they organized in the past, underlined that the second Nebo-U radar was destroyed in Bryansk. The Ukrainian army, which managed to destroy 3 Nebo model Russian radar systems, each worth over 100 million within a year, is making a great effort to completely change the balances in the airspace. The developments that show the importance of the attacks on Russian air defense assets for Ukrainian aviation have already started to direct the attention of the whole world to Kiev. The press service of the 7th Tactical Aviation Brigade of the Ukrainian Air Force, which released a critical video on October 2nd, showed the whole world the moments when they targeted Russian positions with Su-24M model fighter jets. 2 Su-24M fighter jets taking off from the airbase, accompanied by 2 Su-27 aircraft, made a quick entry into the wooded area where Russian forces are said to be stationed. The fact that no counterattacks were conducted from enemy positions against Ukrainian Air Force warplanes during this process showed once again that Russian forces are experiencing serious problems with air defense. The Kh-25ML model guided missiles integrated into the aircraft have further complicated everything. These guided missiles, which have a warhead weighing 140 kilograms, ensure accurate and successful results from the airstrikes organized by the using side thanks to their ability to penetrate meter-thick concrete. However, in order for these missiles, which have a range of only 3 to 10 kilometers to be used, an air corridor needs to be created through which Ukrainian fighter pilots can safely reach the front line. Using these guided missiles, which were reactivated after recent developments, the Ukrainian fighter pilots, who launched a major attack on the wooded areas where the Russian forces were hiding, managed to land back at the airbase without any problems after the attack. In order to prevent the Russians from strengthening their air defense measures in the region, the 7th Tactical Aviation Brigade of the Ukrainian Air Force did not share the location of the attack. Taking into account the military inventory in Russian aviation, it is clear that the warplanes and ammunition used by the Ukrainian army are much older. However, even in such difficult conditions, and in the recent period when resources are limited, Ukrainian fighter pilots continue to demonstrate their high operational skills and bring Kiev closer to the victory of absolute independence. In addition, recently, unmanned aerial vehicles, which are frequently used by both sides in order to gain superiority in the airspace, have started to seriously affect the fate of the battles in the current period. The Kiev administration, which has significantly increased the investment in the domestic war industry, especially in the last year, continues to develop domestically produced attack UAVs and kamikaze drones, which are low in cost but have a high impact on the battlefield. Palyannitsia model attack UAVs, with a range that can reach more than 20 military air bases in Russia, are one of the biggest indicators of how successfully Ukraine's recent investments in the war industry have been evaluated. Another goal of Kiev in this process is the completion of the production of a long-range ballistic missile that will allow them to target military infrastructures and strategic points in the center of Russia. The statements of Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky, who announced the successful flight trials of this missile during his statement in the first week of October, have already caused great tension and panic for Moscow. The critical intervention of the Ukrainian army in Luhansk has made the occupying Russian forces an open target. The Ukrainian artillery brigade, which targeted the 35N6 Kasta, the favorite radar system of the Russian armed forces, cleared the last obstacles in front of it one by one before launching a retaliatory offensive attempt. Russian forces, who are already living a nightmare in the face of Ukraine's airstrikes, are preparing to leave Luhansk. The developments in the recent period of the Russia-Ukraine war, which has been going on for more than 2 years, have directed the attention of the whole world to the battlefield. Following the appointment of Colonel General Oleksandr Syrsky as Chief of the General Staff at the first stage of the year, the Ukrainian army, which began to implement a much more offensive war strategy, achieved unprecedented victories and advantages both in defense lines and cross-border operations. The Moscow administration, surprised by what to do in the face of Ukraine's sudden pressure and subjected to the greatest territorial loss since World War II, insisted on managing both defense and attack at the same time. It did not take long for this insistence to do nothing but increase the losses of the Russian armed forces and for the roles in the war to change completely. The Moscow administration, which has recently focused all its focus on making progress in the Donetsk region and has not taken into account any critical situation other than this goal, has come to the point of losing critical regions such as Luhansk, which has been occupied since the first phase of the war due to this irrational decision. The occupying Russian forces, which delayed in providing an effective response to the casualties and defeats caused by the attacks of the Ukrainian army, especially through UAVs, began to rapidly lose their last trump cards that could enable them to continue the war. Tuesday, October 8th, the events that happened later on clearly showed how bad the situation has become for the occupying side. November Facebook page of the 15th Black Forest Artillery Reconnaissance Brigade of the Armed Forces of Ukraine shared the developments on the official Facebook page. It was seen that the Russian Kasta radar station was targeted. It was reported that the Chornokine village in the Luhansk region was the area where the operation took place, where 2 elements included in the radar station, a radar and an operational vehicle, were exposed to artillery fire. Towards the end of the video shared by the Ukrainian Artillery Brigade, it was seen that all radar elements were disabled due to the attacks of the November model Russian radar system. It is believed that the Ukrainian army activated the M142 HIMARS model, US-produced multiple rocket launcher system, which used a total of 2 munitions against the radar system, which was damaged beyond repair. The 35N6 Kasta, a low-altitude 2-coordinate surveillance radar operating in the UHF band, is a radar system designed to control airspace, determine coordinates, and detect all air targets, including targets at very low altitude. November 2017, the 35N6 Kasta is a radar system designed to detect all air targets, including targets at very low altitude. This radar system, which is of critical importance for Russian forces due to its ability to instantly detect the orbital characteristics and flight altitudes of air targets, is responsible for transmitting the data and coordinate information it receives to air defense systems via radio channels or wired communication lines. 3 of the Novaya Kasta radar systems, which are critical for the Russian forces' existing air defense systems to provide effective resistance, have been destroyed by Ukrainian forces in the last 5 months. The first of the other 2 mentioned destruction operations was organized by Ukrainian Special Operations Forces operators. It was stated that the Shark model reconnaissance system belonging to Ukraine was used to locate the enemy radar system detected as a result of aerial reconnaissance. As a result of the attack using FPV model kamikaze drones, elements belonging to the radar station were targeted. The second Kasta radar system destruction operation was carried out on November 14th. This time, Kasta 2E2, another variant of the mentioned radar system, was targeted again during the operation in which the artillery brigades took part. Novian's the Kasta 2E2, which has only one antenna compared to the Nov 35N6 Kasta's two antennas, is similarly critical for the Russian air defense forces. However, the Ukrainian army's operations against these systems in recent months may make it literally impossible for Russian forces to detect airstrikes in advance in the future. So what is the main reason behind the fact that Ukraine has recently started to be able to easily destroy Russia's state-of-the-art military vehicles and systems? This situation can be explained by the fact that Ukraine has increased investments in the local defense industry in order to eliminate the current impossibilities and conduct an effective self-defense struggle against Russia, a powerful enemy. During the process of Russia's unjust, destructive, and full-scale invasion attempt, Kiev has made a great effort to ensure the rapid development of new battlefield technologies. This decision, which has enabled Ukraine to become one of the centers of defense innovation, has brought with it Ukraine's effort to provide a guarantee for the future as well as for the war. Ukrainian Defense Minister Rustem Umerov, who recently raised this issue during a statement, stressed that they want to strengthen Ukraine's export income by ensuring the development of the local defense industry after the war. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky announced on October 2nd that Ukraine, which has completed the production of 4 million drones by 2024 and successfully passed ballistic missile tests, will be able to demonstrate a much more effective resistance to a possible aggressive attitude in the future. But at this point, it should not be forgotten that the Kiev administration is in the middle of a very costly war. The economic decline caused by the war leads Ukraine to need foreign investors in order to make progress in the local defense industry. One of the critical comments about this issue came from Admiral Michael Hewitt, co-founder and CEO of the energy and security company IP3. Hewitt, who said that Ukraine, whose local defense industry consists of a traditional structure, has missed a breakthrough in the war process, called Ukraine's focus on the production of asymmetric warfare, unmanned aerial vehicles and naval vehicles in the current process an admirable development. Responding to the question of what the next step will be, Hewitt said, "What we want to do now is to take this to the next stage of venture capital, growth, scalability, and follow exactly what President Zelensky said he wanted to do, namely build capacity in the defense industry. Everything from cannonball factories to building the country's defense capability and becoming part of the European defense industry. Our second request is to protect and strengthen Ukraine's own defense industry base. We also need to protect and scale up the assets of Ukraine's key companies that have previously been part of the defense industry. And finally, the area in which we focus the most is the completely innovative technology side. Andrei Pienar, co-founder and CEO of investment company C5 Capital, emphasized that Ukraine's foreign investment should increase in this process. Speaking about Ukraine's attracting $12 million in private investment for the defense technology industry during the war, Pienar said, "This year, about $9 billion was invested in defense technology startups in the United States, and about $2 billion across Europe. In this context, $12 million is a very modest amount. We will work hard to bring more VC investment firms to Ukraine from other allied countries, so that we will create an allied VC community around Ukraine and scale up this capital. I think it is really important to ease export restrictions in a smart and thoughtful way that will protect Ukrainian interests, preserve Ukraine's know-how, but also allow Ukrainian companies to scale and grow their business on a global scale and access other Sundays." Stating that they want to increase the capital invested in Ukrainian companies from 20 million to hundreds of millions of dollars, Pienar said, "There is nothing preventing Ukraine from attracting $500 million of venture capital from the United States, Great Britain, Europe, and other countries every year. We will work hard to educate other venture investors about the opportunity in Ukraine, how to invest successfully in Ukraine, how to travel to Ukraine, how to meet Ukrainian founders, and match the potential of the defense sector with really fresh and new capital. There is one thing I want to put on the record. we believe that the Ukrainian defense sector will attract $500 million of venture capital in the next 5 years. The Ukrainian security service has caught Putin's loyal propagandist Dmitry Chistilin in Moldova. The Kremlin collaborator, who is known to have played an effective role in launching Russia's unfair invasion attempt on Ukrainian territory, has paid a very heavy price for the global crisis he created and his moves that put Ukraine's sovereignty at risk. The Russia-Ukraine war, which has been going on for more than 2 years, has now become a major crisis and threat not only for Eastern Europe, but for the entire world. This global chaos, caused by the expansionist policies of Russian leader Vladimir Putin, who ignited the fuse for the decision of a full-scale, unjust invasion of the territory of Ukraine during his statement on February 24, 2022, has brought with it the footsteps of a disaster such as a nuclear war in the recent period. The Ukrainian army, which is effectively carrying out the self-defense struggle against all destructive and aggressive moves and threats of Russia on the active battlefield, has determined a brand new strategy by 2024. Thanks to this purely offensive strategy, this sudden pressure of the Ukrainian army, which both further strengthened the defense lines on the active battlefield and moved the war inside Russian territory, began to seriously slow down or hinder Moscow's plans. However, the Kyiv administration, which successfully managed the war not only through battles, but also in the field of intelligence, has now begun to identify the perpetrators of the unjust occupation to which they were subjected. Kremlin official Dmitry Chistilin, known for his efforts to legitimize Russia's declaration of a full-scale war against Ukraine, especially during the first phase of the war, was able to escape responsibility for the crisis he created only until October 2024. Chistilin, who participated in a forum held in Moldova where support for Kiev was discussed, introduced himself as a representative of Ukrainian civil society. Dmitry Chistilin, who has participated in many similar conferences in the past, serving as a Kremlin propaganda tool and working to spread the Putin team's rhetoric about the war, has made efforts to create some kind of fear on Ukraine's Western allies and disrupt support for Kiev. The Kremlin official, who can also be described as a supporter of Russia's interests outside the country, has been accused of interfering in elections in Middle Eastern and Eastern European countries in the past process. The fact that Sergei Glaziev, one of Putin's former advisors, is his assistant clearly shows that Chistilin is one of the main perpetrators of Russian aggression against Ukraine. Glaziev, a former advisor to the Russian leader, became one of the critical organizers who played an active role in the seizure of the Crimean Peninsula and parts of the Donetsk and Luhansk oblasts. However, Glaziev has a book called Information Warfare Strategy, in which he tries to justify Russia's full-scale invasion of Ukraine. Chistilin, who is Glaziev's assistant, is no different from a spy assigned to make this propaganda the dominant opinion around the world. However, the operation organized by Moldova and Ukraine in cooperation ensured that the Kremlin's favorite spy was caught red-handed. Dmitry Chistilin, who was arrested in a joint operation organized by the Moldovan Information and Security Service SIB and the Ukrainian Security Service SBU, was trying to return to Moscow at this time. The arrest of Chistilin, who was on his way to the airport after attending a forum discussing military and financial support for Kiev, by Moldovan Information and Security Service teams at this very moment, completely eliminated one of the Kremlin's most critical propaganda tools. After his initial interrogation, Chistilin was handed over to the SBU employees of the Ukrainian Security Service by the decision of the Moldovan administration, and is currently being tried with a request for life imprisonment. After the operation, the Ukrainian Security Service officials, who shared detailed information about the person, said, Chistilin, between 2016 and 2024, he prepared a series of analytical materials for the Kremlin, in which he supported Russia's armed aggression and the integration of the temporarily occupied regions of Ukraine into Russia. Critical statements were also received from the Ukrainian Prosecutor General's office about the Kremlin spy who is being tried for treason in accordance with 2 articles of the Criminal Code of Ukraine, and for refusing the armed attack of the Russian Federation on Ukraine. Alexander Safarian, prosecutor of the Prosecutor General's Office of Ukraine, who stated that they had submitted a request for extended detention to the Kiev-Shevchenkivsky District Court about the accused, said, "The court accepted the request, and a precautionary measure was decided against Chistilin in the form of detention until December 4th without the possibility of paying bail." Chistilin, who is mentioned in the investigation file as an active fighter whose main residence address is said to be in Russia and who supports Russia's unjust invasion of Ukraine, has denied these accusations in many meetings, forums, and conferences that he has participated in throughout the past process. Especially after the date of February 24, 2022, when Russia officially announced the unjust invasion attempt, Chistilin, who denied everything that was said about him, could not get rid of his suspicions due to what he said and his activities during the process. Currently, employees of the main investigative unit of the SBU, the Security Service of Ukraine, are trying to continue research on Chistilin and expand and improve the investigative file to be more comprehensive by finding new evidence. If the charges are proven, Putin's loyal propagandist will be sentenced to life imprisonment with all his assets confiscated. Other propagandists acting in the interests of the Kremlin, such as Chistilin, are quite big for Putin and his team. Russian leader Vladimir Putin, who has reached the point of completely losing the public's trust, especially due to the developments since August, will lose all his authority and influence if the process continues like this. The current flurry of the Russian leader, who during his statement on the first day of the war guaranteed that the war would be won in just a few months with minimal casualties, is due to the possibility of his throne being completely overthrown before the war ends. However, the Russian leader, who urgently needs manpower support to continue the war, is trying to convince male citizens to join the army by spreading his propaganda work throughout the country.